I can't look back, it's too late now. My days are hours and I don't know how, but I believe the great is still yet to come. I won't stop fighting, man, until I'm done.
Hello and welcome to the 68th Breakfast Ball. I'm your host, Bob Cardia, and welcome. I gotta say Happy Easter, by the way. This is our Easter edition of the Breakfast Ball. And today's episode is called Preparation H. No, we're not talking about hemorrhoids, but I saw this quote the other day: dreams don't work unless you do. And honestly, from working with a lot of athletes in this current generation, there's a lack of not motivation, because we consider motivation mainly to be a fraud, a discipline. If you want to be great, you need to have a certain degree of discipline in your life. So, and that's not just physically, because I tell my players, my guys, all the time, I could teach Jojo the chimpanzee to hit a golf ball, but he'll never get any better. I mean, he might get marginally better, but in order to get really good or to get great, you need to practice, and there is an absolute discernible difference between hitting a golf ball and practicing, and that's a lot of what we talk about when we're working on mental preparation. So, Les Brown, who is one of my faves, he has this saying: if you want your life to be hard, then do what's easy. If you want your life to be easy, then you have to do what's hard. And it's 100% of the truth. In terms of life and goals, you need to put yourself in a position that your life isn't all about motivation. Because honestly, a song like, if you listen to We Are Champions or We Will Rock You, that might get you motivated in the moment. But discipline, when that alarm clock goes off at 6 a.m. and you don't hit snooze and you get up and you fight for it anyway, and you do it every day, that's discipline. Because we're down 68 weeks in a row doing a podcast. How many people out there have actually done something 68 weeks in a row? I talk about my workout schedule. I chart every workout I ever do. I've charted every workout I've done since 1992. And you think about that, right? What is that, 34 years in a row? I mean, that's a degree of discipline that most people don't have. So I tell everybody, if you're going to really go for something, discipline is way more important than motivation. So this is championship week for us at Rutgers. So we had a little bit of a hiccup this past week. We actually had a tournament we played in. We were, depending on how you look at the rankings, what teams you play and you don't play in divisions and whatnot, we were like 11-0-1 or 11-2, depending upon how you view the schedule. And my boys, we shot somewhere close to 300 the other day, which is roughly about a 75 a man, and the guys were all kind of fired up because it's been the windiest spring in 50 years. So, if we're all shooting, close to 75 in each round, not bad golf. So we played in a 36-hole event the other day, and the second day, it was like every bad tornado movie I've ever seen. I'm sitting in my cart just off the second green, third tee, and I hear this bang, and then like a rumbling sound, and let me tell you what, I thought it was going to be a tornado or something. At the minimum, it was probably a microburst. We had to evacuate the golf course. Apparently 3 big trees got blown over, and it was like a 45-minute to an hour delay. And when I'm talking to my guys during the delay, a couple of them were talking about how bad the weather was, and the guys in the group were playing terrible and yada yada. And they got consumed in the mantra of it's just unscorable, unplayable out there. I love the Jack Nicklaus story when Jack was, I believe, at the Open Championship, the British Open, and he was walking up and down the range, and guy after guy was complaining about the weather. He's like, I got that guy beat, I got that guy beat, I got that guy beat. So we ended up not playing our best. Not awful. I think we had the least variation from round 1 to round 2, which I attribute to the fact that I make my guys practice in bad weather. But we did okay. So I tried to set up practice this past week in terms of practice like you're going to play, and that didn't actually resonate all that well either. So we had our meeting this past Friday, as we always do, and I looked them all in the eye and I said, guys, life is only 10% about what happens to you. It's 90% of what you do about that, and it's so true. I mean, if you get consumed in the the failure experience, you're never going to go anywhere. People that talk about failure, and in a negative way, typically will never grow. I saw this amazing quote, and I'm sure a lot of you have seen it before, but basically when you experience failure and you feel like you've been buried, when you feel like that, don't think of yourself as being buried. Think of yourself as being planted. The ability to grow, the ability to renew. Now, I do realize that most of what we talk about is cliche. A lot of these ideas are not new, but in golf and in life, in the short term, especially on a short turnaround week for my team, I want them to know that the best way to deal with fear is to turn around and face it. Excuses are best for the people that make them. Everybody who makes excuses, they believe them the most, right? I have people, beloved people throughout the years. Recently we had a small incident with a player who when you confront them about things, they typically instantly decide to battle back, no matter how wrong they might be. And I understand that's a defense mechanism. I talked to the player after the fact, and they completely agree. But, you need to take accountability for what you do in this world. And if you're not doing yourself any favors. So this week, on a short week for my team, I told them to turn around, look their fears in the eye, and don't enumerate them, don't dwell on them, don't look at something that happened this past week, don't look forward to whether we make a championship. Make a plan. The difference between fantasy and a dream is commitment. So, we talk about pre-shot routine a lot in golf, but that also works in life. Let's just say we teach basically a 4-step pre-shot routine. 6 to 8 feet behind the ball, pick an actual target, a small target. Make sure your club face is pointing at the small target, and then go parallel. Okay, that is a tried and true method of alignment. It's also something that takes your mind out of extemporaneous things going on around you. Like, for example, the worst advice we ever got when I was a kid. All right, Bobby, conference championship coming up. Don't focus on the enormity. Don't block out the people that are watching. Well, there's an alligator behind you. Ignore it. Right? You can't. The best thing you can do is either focus in on that moment in the present, like the Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, which isn't even a golf book, but it's a great metaphor for just staying in the present. Or map a specific game plan and stick to that. But what you don't want to do is make excuses. What you don't want to do is dwell on the past. What you don't want to do is consume to the future. Stay in the present. Stay in the now. So I guess the moral of today's episode about Preparation H is you have to do what's hard to make your life easy. And that hard thing typically is facing your fears and putting yourself in a position where you might feel a little bit vulnerable. But you know what? Make a plan, stick to it, and go with it. Now, if you like watching our podcast, as always, please comment. I love the breakfast ball. We will send you a Starbucks gift card if you win the drawing. Also, if you want to order merch from our store. Oh yeah, by the way, as always, if you get anything on this podcast and you become rich and famous, we get 10%. Anyway, folks, as always, love spending time with you. We'll be talking with you a little bit down the road. Wish my team well for this upcoming week's conference championship, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that more in the next episode. But keep them straight, think well, and know that thinking well is not easy. It is hard, but if you do things that are hard, it'll make your life easy. See you next week.
Glass of bourbon, ha. My bourbon, ha. My bourbon, ha. Alcohol. There's no great story ever started with, I'll have a salad.